E te ti, e te tā, nau mai, hoki mai, ki tēnei kaupapa, planting seeds. I'm sitting across from Papa Mark, someone who we just had on the podcast, would have been just a few months ago.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy that our stars have aligned to be able to not only me come into Mahi Atua, but to have another kōrero with you, as I feel we only just scratched the surface, and a lot of people that perhaps were listening in may have also wanted some more kōrero. So I think it's a blessing to be here, to be a part of what it is that Mahi Atua has created in this wānanga rangi prauri. But how are things for you, Papa Mark? Pehe ana koe?
Yeah. Tēnā pai. We're right in the middle of a rangi prauri wānanga. And current feedback is quite positive from a lot of the tauira that are attending. And for some of them already in day 3 now, it's been what they're saying to me is, man, life is going to change. And so that's really positive. But it's also healthy for us to get some of the feedback that tells us, this is what has to change. And somebody's not happy with something that's happened to them in the wānanga, and we promote that. We want to hear what that was, so that we can be like the atua from out of Huaki Pōri House, flexible and willing to change. And that's really the key thing for our wānanga, is to build and nurture the desire within our tauira to change, to shift.
One of the key aspects with feedback is the sense of you don't know what you're going to get back, but there is a resistance towards that too, because it might be hard to hear, or it even might be hard to speak up about that. And so to encourage that, what is the process of being able to get used to it or get familiar? Is there a way to do it, or do you just got to rip the Band-Aid off?
Oh, you can rip the Band-Aid. We're following this woman that has created what they call, it's something candor. And it's in this program she has is like ours, but it encourages people to say the thing, but with kindness. But you have to say the thing. And sometimes that whatever it is that you say, whatever that thing is, at the receiving end, it could get brushed off. So you just have to lean into that and say the thing, and not, but also maintaining in a kind manner. And for us, with hongi te whaiwhaiā, we know that it is just as hard to hear negative feedback or receive negative feedback as it is to give negative feedback. And so I know one of the things that I try to do is preempt my feedback by saying, I love you. I don't want to hurt you, but this is something that happened, and it's something we have to pay some attention to. So you're already building this bridge between you and them, because you're worried that your feedback is going to cause a fracture between the two of you. So it's pretty much Radical Candor is the name of this woman's program. And it's fundamentally the same thing. You have to say the thing, but you have to do it with kindness.
Cool. That's a cool way of prefacing the feedback, is reminding each other of the connection.
Yeah, of the connection.
And the aroha. So whatever is said doesn't create that sense of separation or battle, because that's what we can do sometimes, as if we give feedback, and I'm guilty of this, particularly with my makau, is something might be said and then I might come back with a rebuttal. Well, when you've done this, you've done that. And so there is a failure on my part, and perhaps another's around the sense of resistance to listening to the feedback, because there's something that comes up within us that causes us to react. And so having that preface around reminding each other of the kindness, the aroha, can help to listen.
And so we align in our wānanga, we align people to some of our atua that have been forgotten over the colonizers period. And that's kekere wai, that's the atua that says the thing. And then there's Toroi Waho, who has to do two roles, and Toroi Waho is the one that had to listen carefully to the said thing and then not reshape it and spread it out to the rest of the family. And so they're key things, because sometimes when people give you negative feedback, it's hard to sit there and take any more of that, because you already hurt. There's something has happened to you. You're having a physiological reaction to what's been said, and it's hard to respond without that physiological reaction being part of your response. And so that's the whole idea of Toroi Waho, listening with open ears and listening to what's said, not what Toroi Waho
interprets. Yes.
Yeah, so that's part of the. We go through that, and it shows our people that our tipuna, they had it locked down. They knew exactly which of the atua did what, and they sat and did wānanga to understand the behaviour that our atua had, and how we reflect all those behaviours of our atua. They would observe the interaction between the wind and the trees, and observe that sometimes that interaction is aggressive, and look within themselves to see that same momo, that same characteristic coming out of them. It's like the wind aggressively interacting with trees and ripping the head of a tree off and all those sorts of things. So that's the kind of stuff we go through with our wānanga.
It's cool to actually be here in wānanga, because when we done the last episode, there was kōrero around Mahi Atua, but to actually be here, to feel the Mauri, to feel what's going on, to interact, has created a much more of an experience. So when you're kōrero, I can resonate with it so much more. And one of the cool things that I just want to reiterate is listening to what's being said, not what you interpret, because that's where the breakdown happens, is the misinterpretation of what's actually being said, because what's being said is what's being said. It's not what we make it, because we create the stories around certain things there. And so it's cool to hear that there are atua for all of these different things. And one of the key things that you've been speaking into at this wānanga is around Mauri. And you used it in many different areas of the wānanga, sharing it in within the karakia, even the Mauri pounamu that's been passed around. And so when you speak about Mauri, what are the things that I guess would be helpful for people to either know about when it comes to Mauri?
Essentially, when I talk about Mauri here, is for the tauira to understand that the Mauri is something that, and it could be an object or a person, and it is something that carries the kaupapa of whatever it is, the journey that you're on. Whatever that kaupapa is, it's the Mauri that's the anchor for that kaupapa. And so if you tend sort of like get a little bit sidetracked or anything, you come back and check that Mauri to know whether or not you're detaching from it and going off track, or you're maintaining the course that the Mauri holds. So, and one of the other things with that is rather than our wānanga being an academic discussion, we're trying to get people to practice using Mauri. So for the 5 days that we're here, or there's 4 days where our own rangi parori or mahi atua Mauri gets handed around. So that people are experiencing, and like that's what you were saying before about the experience, because it's hard to sit in a podcast and try to describe really what mahi atua is all about. It's easier to say, come to the wānanga and experience it, because there you're going to see us practice our culture as much as we can. Like, not talk about a tohi, but in day 4 we're going to have a tohi. Not talk about pure. On day 2 we're going to have a pure. So these things are actually practiced so that our people are engaging with a living culture as opposed to an academic one.
Wow. And that's Mauri, eh? It's would it be the essence of something?
It's the essence of something. So our tipuna, again, they had that idea locked down, and they placed Mauri into all sorts of even into the plants and what I remember being taught by a man who was a bit of an expert in doing rongoa, and he said to me, "You never boil that stuff. You all you're trying to do is stimulate the Mauri inside that plant to do its job. If you boil it, you kill the Mauri of the plant."
Wow.
So
that makes sense.
I've never forgotten that, and I've always realized that, that sits alongside Mauri noho, Mauri mate, Mauri tū, Mauri ora. And so I've always remembered it and always considered that Mauri tū, Mauri ora is about living engagement, experience. It's not about thrashing the heck out of kaupapa, just gently stimulating the Mauri to wake it up and let's
and participate with it.
Participate,
yeah, that's neat. One of the pūrākau that you shared was around Mauri Moko, because that's a big part of Mahi Atua too, is you've got tā moko tables, tā moko artists in the back of the wharenui, and it's all happening at the same time. So while there's wānanga happening, there's people getting tā moko, and one of my reflections is there's a lot going on within the wānanga, but it works. It works so beautifully because you're saying the practices that have the oranga, that have the healing, aren't just things that are being spoken about, they're actually being practiced. So you've got taonga, puoro, moko, wānanga happening, and miri, even the podcast is here. So there's a lot of different parts, but it just works so beautifully. But yesterday you spoke about Mauri Moko and the kōrero around how the story of Te Atairangi Kāhu, is that a pūrākau that you're able to share for our listeners around Mauri Moko?
Yeah, Tūheitia, who just passed away, or Ngā Waihonoi Te Pō's grandmother, Te Atairangi Kāhu, never actually openly spoke to people and spoke about her desire to get her moko kauai done. And so unfortunately, and the reason what she wanted, she was so humble that she wanted the iwi to ask that it be done. And she would allow the iwi's voice to determine that outcome, but it never came. And so when she passed, and the Tairāwhiti had a discussion about what it is that we are going to offer to King Tūheitia as a whakaaro nui from the Tairāwhiti, and one of the, evident things of the Tairāwhiti is the amount of moko that we carry. And so we decided that what we would do as an offering or a gift is to offer that we do Tūheitia's kanui, which he politely declined. But because that tono went to Waikato, there was a large number of the women who had been they were dedicated their lives to working for Dame Te Atairangi Kāhu. And now that the centre of their lives was gone, they wanted to remember her in a way that was powerful for them. And so when this opportunity came up, they stepped in place of Tūheitia to take moko kauai. And I tell you what, there was like something up in the number of 40s. And when they were talking to me as being one of the ones to go through and do this, as the Tairāwhiti was offering this to happen, I thought 40-something, I don't want to get stuck in Waikato for that long, because there's a lot of work. So there were three of us, and it was a beautiful, beautiful event that happened over the course of a weekend. We managed to get through 15 women. There was one done the weekend before to kick the ball off, the game off. upward of 60 women from the Tairawhiti with Mokopapa arrived to support this kaupapa. They offered to myself a gift of a patu pounamu. And I thought it was unfair that with 3 artists there was only 1 gift. So I suggested that I would break this patu pounamu into 3 pieces so that all 3 of us could. And they, of course, they didn't want to accept that. And so one of our team, our Sir Derek Lardali, not then was he a sir, but he suggested that the patu pounamu stay within Mahi Nārangi, within the house as the mauri for Moko. But it also, what it showed to us was that even though Dame Te Atarangi Kahu didn't wear a moko kauai, she certainly became the reason and the purpose that this Mokopapa went down.
Wow.
And so for us, that was perfect that her wairua Mauri would become the Mauri in that patu pounamu, which is Te Kapuarangi, which means the hand of rangi. And so it stays within that whare as a miringa moko, as a Mauri moko for generations to come.
Wow. When we're talking about Mauri, it's something that is just so strong in terms of a people's love for someone. To be able to then honour their love for that person.
That's right.
In a way to receive and in a way of acknowledgement. And that's a beautiful way to see what Mauri actually looks like in practice. And, you know, we see that everywhere now in terms of where moko is at, and we spoke about it in the last podcast. But even just as an artist, you know, I was lucky to stay at a whare last night, and I walked in and there's just beautiful paintings, carvings. There's just a lot of art everywhere, and there's a feeling that comes with being immersed within creativity and the arts. And so for you as an artist, for you to you know, whakaraka i tō whare, and what is that just something that comes with being an artist, Papa, in terms of the gifts that you receive, or, you know, the gifts that you give to others? But an artist whare, you can tell because it's just everywhere.
It's full of art. I almost need a curator to run my house because of the amount of art that's in there. And that house that you're looking at there is designed specifically to show off a lot of art. We no longer have a Main Street gallery, so we use that house because it's an Airbnb when it's not being used as the hub of our organisation. Our own home has got a lot of art in it. And I think it's just the nature of being part of the art world. A lot of people want to gift art to me because a lot of those pieces of art that are in both houses are gifts that have been given to us. There's a large carved piece outside of the hub house, and that's a gift that was given to us on our wedding. And it's you know, it's I think it is the nature of an artist that their friends are going to be artists, their colleagues are going to be artists. And so we like to exchange backwards and forwards our pieces of art. And what
goes into like the process of creating art? Is there aroha going into what it is that you're doing, and you're thinking about who the gift is for? So is there like a process that happens naturally to be able to create the piece?
Yeah, it is. One of the things that you base, especially for Māori artists, or I think in all artists in general, no matter whether they're Māori or non-Māori, is to have a storyline. So that the piece of art is not just something pretty to look at, but it also has stories in it that allow you to have a discussion about what that is. So a lot of the art that's inside the Stanford household, the hub, is art about the atua. All about our atua, all about our tipuna. And the stories that come about from that, so Noho Tatapu, which is our first story that we share with everybody, is this fabulous piece of art done by Turumaki Natuli, who's part of our team on North. And it is very, very hard. It's a piece of art that's very, very hard to look away from. It took him months to create it, and there's 70 individuals in the piece of art, and he knows which one is which. You know, it's an amazing piece of art, but it's all based on this one story about 70 children in between the lovers' embrace, which was a restriction and a confinement for these 70 children. But the artist looks fabulous. And so there's that approach. And currently I'm working on, and I've just gone back to doing whakairo. So after many years away from chisels, timber chisels, and I've just gone back, and now my older brother is saying, we want to celebrate. Well, we both agree we need to celebrate our older sister's birthday, because we don't know whether she's going to reach another birthday, sort of thing. So he's saying to me, can you carve her a toko? And so I've got to, there's a certain amount of research for whakapapa and kaupapa that you have to dive into in order to put that story on a piece of art, no matter whether it's a painting, whether it's a whakairo or a moko. You have to do that kind of research. So even when somebody's coming to me for a piece of moko, we have a discussion, and if it's like Friday I'm doing thought, I have to have a discussion with the recipient about his life, so that I can show that life to where it's at this point on that mataora. So it's a
story,
It's a story.
Because that's the nature of art, even back in our tipuna days, in terms of, whakairo, mataora, moko, even raranga. It's all weaving in a story, because that was the way to have kōrero and to have the discussions. And so because a big part of, I guess now, a lot of creatives have that creative block. Is that because of, is that just something that happens in the creative space, or would it be what would be something to help, I guess, creatives who might feel that block? And
always, I think that the story, if you dive into the individuals or the ancestral story, that helps you shift whenever there is a block. Because if you don't have this brain thinking, circling round and round all the different components of a story, and how you could symbolize that component, show, reveal this component in symbology, and that part of the story. So there's all these multiple little bits and pieces of the story that have symbols attached to them. And then you piece that together, and then how do you decorate that overall stuff? And so those little decoration symbols can be part of enhancing the story.
Enhancing it.
And allowing you to hinge to something to start the conversation about that ancestor.
Man, that's so cool, Papa Mark. As you sort of alluded to, there is a Mokopapa happening here on Friday.
Yes.
And what's the process with that? And because the tauira or the recipients have gone through the wānanga, and what does that look like? What is the process of the Mokopapa on Friday?
Ideally, if I was to just go back to the tūranga wāwai, and I can't even recall how long ago, that was over 20-something years ago. And that was, I think, as far back as I can remember, the first time that terminology of Mokopapa was used. And it became a movement from there, based out of the recipients all receiving either moko kauai or moko mataora kanohi. And so since then, Mokopapa have been rotating around the country, especially up in the whānau Apanui. They've all literally gone crazy in the whānau Apanui, putting together these Mokopapa. But what it does is that it really does bring iwi together, hapu together, families together. in order to not just celebrate, but to strengthen the connection with each other and with the art form of moko and the whakapapa of each individual and each recipient. So it came out of this tūranga waiwai kaupapa with Dame Te Aotearangi Kāhu and the Patupanamu Kapuarangi. And since then it's tracked to the point now where for us in the Rangi Parodi wānanga, and also there's a couple of other wānanga courses that we run, the Taururangi course, the end is a celebration of Mokopapa. And it is entirely up to the individual to make the choice that they can go to a Mokopapa and either get their kauai done or start the process for their mataora. And so that's fundamentally what happens. We make it obvious and the opportunity is there for Rangi Parodi attendance, tauira. And so fortunately on the first day for me, one individual came up and said, I feel as though this is the time for me to step into that realm of carrying the symbols permanently of my ancestry. So that's wonderful for people to reach that point. And really that shows me that the Mauri of Moko is alive. It's really thriving and we're engaging with it and we bring it to our wānanga so that it is alive and we can engage with it. Yeah.
Did you ever think that this kaupapa mahi Atua would be what it is now? You know, because I look in there and there's a lot of engagement in terms of the people that are here. And this is only one wānanga. You fellas do a series of wānanga throughout the year. And you're getting people from different spaces, whether it's mahi, whether it's just from in the communities, whether being pulled in here from whānau, whatever it may be. But the Mauri just seems to be growing. And the Mokopapa that happens on a Friday seems like a different way of celebrating and acknowledging their process of either being in the wānanga or even just the next stage in their own journey. And so was this how it looked at the start or has this developed over the years?
I think it's kind of developed, not necessarily within Rangi Parodi. I think in general, Māoridom has developed this hunger to be Māori. You see it in the political space, you see it in cultural spaces, and you know the growth of Matatini is just out the gate. It's one of the largest celebrations that occurs, and so with that, we've also witnessed in the Mahi Atua wānanga a hunger for our people to reconnect with their whakapapa, reconnect with the atua. Reconnect with those stories that have been muffled over and covered over by Cinderella and the Three Bears. Those stories. So they want to know more and more about their heritage that came from here, not the heritage and the history that came from other lands. They want to engage in their own history and their own culture, their own whakapapa with themselves. Fundamentally, it's engaging with themselves, and I think that that is building a powerful critical mass that is Māori in every possible way. So, but I think that it's not. It wasn't something that we could see would happen. It was definitely something we hoped would happen. That we aspired to help for it to happen, to come about, to manifest. And we're so happy where it is right now. And of course, you know, to see other Māori get excited about wānanga that they've missed out on in their lives, you know, and get excited about it. And it always reminds me of the day when I first ever saw a chart, and at the top of the chart was Ranginui and Papatūānga, who in my youth, my childhood, I knew that was the sky and the earth. And for me, in general, I just thought, oh, gee, sky and earth, what are they talking about? How can I be part of that sort of connection? But at the bottom of the chart was my dad's name, and I thought to myself, my name is underneath that. And it was so spiritually elevating. It really enthused me to understand, and it showed me that this wasn't humbug. And it excited me to want to develop the hunger for more.
For more.
And so that's one of the beauty that I see coming out of our wānanga, which is why we say we want to nurture and foster the desire within people to make the shift and to make changes and to move in the direction that best suits them.
Best suits them. Because it's the feeling of connection there.
Aye.
And it's through the kōrero and the pūrākau, and even just being on the marae, being around other people who are on a similar journey. There's a lot of moving parts that help people connect more to themselves. And there are people who are in leadership. There are people who have gone through real trauma. There are people who may be going through relationship things. And no matter where anyone is, everyone tends to go through challenging times. And we try ways that we've been taught, but it might create the same outcomes, and we don't necessarily find a way that way. And what I'm noticing, not even just here but elsewhere, is that people are coming more to Te Ao Māori because other ways haven't worked. And so is that a space that you're seeing as well in terms of the healing and people wanting to find more connection? Is that the way that they've been taught isn't working, and is that the encouragement?
Exactly. Because we I always think that you get these options when things are really, really challenging and you don't know what to do, and you get to this. That's on the journey. You've gotten to a point in the road where it goes left or right, and you're at the point of wondering, okay, if I go right, which is the normal thing that I've done, has gone right, it sends me down to a path that might have diagnoses and because I'm so overwhelmed with the distress that I'm experiencing at this point. If I go right, then I'm going to end up might be in some sort of facility that looks after people who are struggling, and I could be on meds, I could be on all these things that are actually foreign to my life. Or I could go left. This is the opportunity that Mahi Atua is trying to create. Or I could go left and experience my whakapapa, karakia tawhito, pūrākau, atua, all these things that reconnect me with the same people on that path. And that is so much more a reflection of my life anyway as a Māori than the other turning right. So basically that's what we're trying to do, is say you have these two options, and one is the regular option is not working because you're going to end up revisiting that all the time. And this option over here, and that turning right, there's an expectation of the tikanga of that road that you're going to go by yourself, that you're on this journey by yourself. And that's masked with the confidentiality, all those tikanga from that pathway. Whereas over going left is, let's do this together. Let me stand next to you and help you carry your burden. That's all that we're trying to do. But let's show why I'm here is because we're connected whakapapa, we're connected culturally, and we live parallel lives. My life is a mirror of your life, and that that sort of thing. We're trying to show that there's what's down the end of that optional road and what's down the end of this road.
And there's the pūrākau around Atua, there's the karakia tawhito that are used as the frame to provide that support and awhine.
It's the scaffolding.
The scaffolding, I like that. I said something yesterday when we had our pōhiri was around, there's a lot of focus around mental health, but there's also the sense that it's not mental health, it's spiritual health. And so when we can have better spiritual health that'll help us mentally, but then also physically and whatever we are interacting with. Is that a kōrero that you feel is tika, or is there any further whakaaro on the round of focus on mental health and lack of focus on spiritual health?
I think part of the thing is mental health is spiritual. I prefer that. I prefer that because your wairu is taking a hit. If you're in distress, your wairu will take a hit. And I think they're kind of interconnected.
Yeah.
But it is, this wānanga is to, this wānanga and the processes and the objective of our wānanga here, the mauri of our wānanga, is to help people put those two things together. Not as individuals. When, our tipuna had these whakatauki that said that if you stand alone, e hara taku toi te toa taki tahi, engari he toa taki tini. And so they had this, they knew those things. If you stand alone, you have a higher risk of falling. And you've got no one there to help lift you. In that world, they say, stand up. If you fall off the horse, get back on the horse. But it doesn't encourage the idea that there's going to be, that you need to have a collective in order to safely ride the horse, in order to not fracture so badly. You have to, as soon as when we have our wānanga and people sitting in the wānanga don't know what it is that's going on in the wānanga, and they're afraid, they don't feel safe to share. But when they hear somebody who's brave enough to share, and they suddenly think, oh my goodness, that person's story is a mirror of my story. You no longer feel alienated and singled out. You no longer feel vulnerable, you actually feel more collective. And you can sit in wānanga with that person whose distresses, whose celebrations and everything about their lives reflects and mirrors yours. You can be one with that and awhi one another. And not only that, strengthen that connection through whakapapa, strengthen that connection through the culture that you both share.
That's so true. It's the sense of interconnected, how everything is connected, our spiritual, our mental and our physical, and even being in spaces that can help nurture that. Because if we're stuck within one way of thinking or one way of being, we've essentially closed ourselves off to other ways of interacting and living.
That's right.
And so coming into a space like this and you hear someone, as you said, share a kōrero, and you're like, whoa, I thought I was the only one that was going through something like that. And so someone's vulnerability creates opportunity for someone to now engage, because they don't feel isolated no longer. And so we're coming back to the kōrero around connection and just how beautiful connection is, and it takes away the sense of being alienated. And it's also how we think about ourselves that can be the biggest challenge within that sense of separation.
Absolutely,
And do you feel when we think about the wānanga, we're sitting around in the wharenui, we've got the music playing, what are some of the things as someone who's doing the wānanga, a way to adjust? Because you can have a wātaka, you can have a program, you can have things that you want to do, but wānanga is around being flexible, And you shared a pūrākau around that, I think even at the start of this, but is there a kōrero around the ability to be flexible and to adjust? Because we have high expectations of ourselves. We want things to go our way, but often the path can be deterred because of unforeseen circumstances. And so when you think about flexibility and adjusting on the fly, what keeps you toe within that?
Always the story that comes about from flexibility is the shift of Tangaroa from out of the house of status quo. And being a teina in that house to a number of tuakana, although a very powerful atua, and shifting from that house into the teina house, but being a tuakana in that house. And so the shift in the move that Tangaroa took, or in some versions of that, it was Tangaroa was forced to take that move. But in other versions, Tangaroa chose freely by wanting to advocate for the voice of those who had been silenced. And so that for me is the pūrākau that always helps me whenever I'm challenged or facing some rigid thinking and stuck thinking. I always think about how Tangaroa shifted and how Tangaroa maintained an open mind in order to facilitate and give voice for the others and the collective. And so when I think about that, I also go to Tangaroa. And of course, when I'm challenged and that sort of thing, the story about Tangaroa being inhaling, because if you live close to the sea, you can always hear Tangaroa breathing. And so Tangaroa inhales, and then that causes the low tide, and then exhales and causes the high tide. And that's why they call that gap in between te Tangaroa te tai. And so that always helps me and encourages me to go to the sea, go to the seashore, to the beach, and stand there and let that water touch me. And it helps even in my own times, the softening of my own rigid thinking and stuff like that, is to just let that water wash over me. And because that rigid thinking is a Tūtauniwene was the name of that house of rigid thinking, and it is a whare tapu. Whereas Huaki Pōri, just in the name alone, is a whare noa. And so whenever I'm in that tapu state, I need to go to the sea to whakanoa myself. And so that's why we take the crew down to the beach to do the pure down there, to whakanoa ourselves of our taumaha, our mamai, our stuckness.
Man, that's so cool how you bring that in, because that's something that's really practical for a lot of us, is the knowing that we all go through challenging things and we feel like we're just hitting a brick wall at times in terms of our thinking, our movement, the momentum. We're trying to decide between many different things. We might even feel overwhelmed. Like, these are all real emotions and experiences, but that pūrākau around Tangaroa, wanting to be more open-minded, being able to go into another space to have a voice, but then having that pūrākau and mimicking what he had done, but using his elements of the way to go down to the water. So I remember a time where I was going through something like that, and I went to the Moana, very fortunate to live close to the beach at my whare, and I went down and I sat up on the sand dunes. And I looked out and I saw Tangaroa, the waves, the ngaru, they were rough as, and it felt like how I was feeling. I was like, man, what's happening out there is what I'm feeling inside. But then I got a flash right away that yesterday it was calm. And so tomorrow might be calm. And so it gave me the maramatanga that I'm just feeling like this now, and it's okay. Because tomorrow is another day, and there's times where the beach is beautiful. And so it just landed how you shared that. Do you feel, to think about that kōrero, it's a step to know what we need to do, but we still procrastinate the sense of doing it?
It's interesting that you raised that point about the procrastination, because when we go down to the beach and do the pure, I say to people, you don't need to study for 4 months or 4 years the karakia for a pure. You just have to carry the intention that you want whatever burdening you to go. That energy needs to go. So we come down here and I say, you grab a stick and wrap all that energy up into one word or 2 words. Write the word at the edge of the wave, at the edge of the shore. Write that word. Stand back, stand in the water as it rushes up the beach, and watch Tangaroa take it away. I also say, if you know, we have this saying that's very common in our languages, kia purea koe ngā, purea koe ngā hau o tāwhiri mātea. So you go down to the beach and you write in on the sand. You don't have to use the water for that, because sometimes the trickiness is, the only thing you have to make sure is that you do it on an outgoing tide. But you can write in the sand on a windy day. You write that word in the sand and still watch tāwhiri mātea take that burden away and wear it down until the sand is flat again. It's no longer there. So those are the practical things without procrastinating and thinking, well, I don't know the karakia to go down and do that. That's the karakia. That one word that you write in the sand. That's the karakia.
Damn, that's so cool, Papa. I've really, really enjoyed this kōrero, Papa Mark, and thank you again for creating the space. You've been puku mahi being in wānanga. But what are some parting words for our whānau that may be listening to this kōrero, listening to the series, and they feel pulled to come into Mahi Atua? Perhaps what's some parting words for our listeners?
I really, really encourage people to come and sit in the wānanga. If it's, it's one thing to follow us, and I love the fact that you follow us on Facebook and all those other places where we get followed. But we'd love to see you at the wānanga. The wānanga is something very, very special, the 5-day. I'd love the opportunity I love the fact that you sit, because what it does is that all this kōrero that I've collected over a lifetime gets an opportunity to live for another generation and another generation after that. And I always worried that when my time was up, would I be taking all this kōrero with me? But I'm so happy that when that arrives, this kōrero will live. So in order for that to live, I invite you to try and come and sit with us in Rangiparori.
But that's an awesome whakaaro to know that you have all of this and now you've got a space to be able to share it, but it's landing on people who are open to receiving it.
They're hungry for it.
The other thing around this that I might share is that when you go to wānanga, there's always the feeling of, man, that could have been longer. And you fellas do a 5-day wānanga and you're having tauira and even kaimahi said, oh, this needs to be longer. But this is the longest wānanga that I've been a part of. But I feel there's time, the luxury of time to be able to miri, to integrate, to build those connections. And so to the listeners who have been on the fence and have been looking, this is a great space to be able to get a closer connection to yourself, to be around the toki who are part of it, Papa Mark, Auntie D, Whaiwhiri Moko. There's a lot of high caliber people here, but there's also a lot of great tauira. So i ringa i tērā, tēnā koe Papa, and to our listeners, tēnā koutou.
Tēnā koutou.
Cool.
Awesome.